outlets weren't working. Our ceiling fan had caught on fire.
That's all you gotta do. Rats and roaches for 3 years.
You know, I can't imagine having the same issue this summer where it gets up to 96 degrees and now I have a baby and having to be stuck in the house.
I'm waiting for one of us to just fall through a floor.
It felt like a halfway house. I hate to say it.
But they know, there's nowhere we can go.
This entire neighborhood behind me is owned by one giant mega corporation that's run by a super secret private equity investment firm.
So Progress Residential is owned by a private equity firm and owns tens of thousands of single-family homes across the U.S.
A Tampa Bay Times analysis found that Tampa Bay's housing market is becoming increasingly corporate-owned. It's not uncommon to see entire blocks bought up by corporate investors. Large companies have amassed around 27,000 homes in the region. And more than 70% of these properties are linked to institutional investors with ties to Wall Street and private equity firms.
This is one of the neighborhoods that investors have really targeted. They're coming in, they're buying it at cash, and then they're going to hold them as rentals.
In January, 33% of all homes purchased in the U.S. were bought by investors, often Wall Street-backed companies with multi-billion-dollar funds, and rent them out, in some cases, to the very families who dreamed of owning them.
Well, that is not ideal, is it? But is there more to this story than just Wall Street investment giants buying up the American dream? Spoiler alert, yes, and it's even more sinister than you can ever imagine. Today, we are in Tampa, Florida to investigate the largest single-family rental operator in the U.S. with 85,000 homes in their portfolio, a company called Progress Residential, a subsidiary of Pretium Partners, a New York-based private equity firm. They also happen to be the largest landlord in Tampa that's backed by a private equity firm, meaning they aren't required to provide information about what assets they own, who is funding them, and how much money they're making. And oftentimes, unless tenants do a little bit of their own digging, they won't even really know that they live in a Progress Residential owned property. For example, the Tampa Bay Times found nearly 100 LLCs linked to Progress Residential. Most of the LLCs had nondescript names like Home SFR Borrower IV LLC and True North Property Owner B LLC. The only giveaway being that they all had the same mailing address, which is a P.O. box in Scottsdale, Arizona. Now the question is, what have they got to hide? We're gonna try to find that out.
We acquire single-family homes across several markets in the country. We renovate those homes to a like-new standard, and we rent them out.
Well, let's go take a look at a like-new Progress Residential property. All right, let's take a look here. Everything looks decent enough. It definitely looks like this place has been renovated recently, at least cosmetically. But the thing that is vital to know about single-family houses is not the cosmetic stuff. It's what's going on and hiding behind these walls. The condition of the pipes, the plumbing, the electrical, the HVAC, maybe even mold. All the stuff that you can't see until you've moved in, and then it's kind of too late.
A new report calls Progress Residential predatory.
The outlets weren't working. Our ceiling fan had caught on fire.
Families renting from Progress complained of unsafe conditions, excessive fees, and eviction warnings, even though they said the rent was paid.
That's a $40 fee itself.
They charge you to put an eviction notice on your door?
They charge us to put eviction notice on our door.
Jamari Brown moved into this home in North Minneapolis in 2020.
We've had rats and roaches for 3 years.
She showed us busted locks, where the basement leaks after it snows, and crumbling walls.
That's all you gotta do.
Brown says she complained, but that her landlord, Progress Residential, brushed her off.
So what's it take for the landlord to come and fix these issues?
For this house to explode and us to die.
I spoke to a number of current and former tenants of Progress Residential, and they told me the problem started right from the get-go.
The issues arose when we had AC outages. And it was like the dead of summer in Florida, so really hot, unbearable. Inside our house got up to 96, and we were waiting days for them to come out.
Throughout that first week of us trying to unpack, we were finding more and more problems that were listed as things that were supposed to have already been fixed before we moved in. The banister was not attached properly, and going up and down the stairs was dangerous. There's just tile that's like not attached to anything. There's just outlets that are just out of the wall. The garage door just had giant gaps on either side. Anyone could have just taken a crowbar and just kind of popped their way into our garage.
According to this 2023 report put out by Private Equity Stakeholder Project, a nonprofit private equity watchdog, whistleblowers from within Progress Residential have alleged patterns of harmful neglect.
We had these wasps start nesting in our porch. There were like 7, 8 nests by the end of this. They never came out to deal with that. They continued to try to convince me it was my job. We spent most of last year just waging our own war against them, and every single time we went outside, like, we would just be armed and just like, we kind of taught them to stay up there, not where we were.
Currently, the issue we have is our water heater. So now we have hot water like for 5 minutes. Our showers are horrible. It's just really unprofessional, if I have to sum it up in one word.
And these experiences that we've heard today from Caitlin, Amber, and others are not isolated incidents. One former Progress Residential employee said that upper management ignored their concerns regarding staff shortages and frequently pressured staff to deny or delay maintenance requests. Quote, "It is all about their bottom line, and if what the resident is needing does not fit their bottom line, forget about it. It's not happening, and it doesn't matter how big the issue is."
Working for them, I was in the evictions collections area, and how they were doing invoices was not correct. They will lose payments and then say it was your fault. And then here comes the astronomical late fees and charges and things like that. It was horrible. Like, they don't clean for tenants to, move right in, no issues. If anything were to happen, you have to make a work order. You won't hear from maintenance for like 4 to 6 weeks. If that, I had to quit because the last 4 checks of my employment was incorrect. I was doing overtime, and then they were double taxing the money that was paid out. And then our bonus structure still wasn't paid out. And then our quarterly bonus, we never saw it. The government needs to honestly step in and audit the hell out of these people, because honestly, they take and don't give. It's a lot of rules that they're not following.
Alleged property neglect, junk fees, frivolous evictions, targeted exploitation of the less fortunate, and potential cases of employee wage theft, among other payroll and labor violations, on a systemic basis. Such are the hallmarks of a Wall Street landlord. It's funny, I don't even live in a Progress Residential home, and they're already charging me money to just tour the property. That's what I mean when I say it's disturbing what is happening. It's not just Wall Street buying up homes, buying up the American dream. It's the fact that companies are breaking the law with impunity, and it's also the fact that our quality of life has gone measurably downwards, getting worse because there's no accountability. It's not you'll own nothing and be happy. It's you'll own nothing and be very, very, very unhappy. Although I do imagine somebody watching this is probably asking the question, if Progress Residential is so bad, if any of these companies are that bad, why would anyone want to move in the first place?
Everyone gets excited like, oh, it's a home.
They do seem to have a lot of renter-friendly policies.
Again, on paper, it looks great because, again, they brag about, we do rent payment plans. We report positive rental history to the credit bureaus. Most houses don't do that. We want this house to feel like yours. So install anything you want, paint anything you want, hang anything you want on the walls. Like, yeah, that stops them from being liable for anything because they're trying to give you this, like, we want you to feel at home. Here you go, make it your home. Which in turn allows them to be like, you do all the repairs. All of these things that are supposed to help you build rent that look great on paper that we were excited about. And then you dig deeper into it and you go, this also means most of their tenants are one bad day away from being homeless because they couldn't afford to go anywhere else.
Even with wanting to move, money's tight, you're living paycheck to paycheck. You don't have money to just up and go to a hotel.
Progress Residential is one of those like slumlord companies, basically.
For the first time in US history, the top 1% has more wealth than the entire middle class combined, leaving many Americans fearful of their economic and financial future. And with housing being a universal need, companies like Progress Residential, under the guise of inclusivity and community, have exploited this market dynamic and the financial vulnerability of many Americans by offering their tenants subpar housing, draining them financially, before ultimately discarding them. For close to a century, a home wasn't just a physical space. It was a symbol of success, stability, a better future, and the cornerstone of the American dream. But let's talk conspiracy for a second. Banks used to make money writing mortgages. So naturally, they encouraged homeownership because it helped make them more money. But today, it seems like maybe banks have figured out that perhaps an even better way to make money is just to own the buildings themselves. Wells Fargo, once the #1 mortgage lender in the US, actually shut down much of its mortgage lending division last year. Estimates indicate that by 2030, institutions may hold some 7.6 million homes, or more than 40% of all single-family rentals on the market, according to a 2022 forecast by MetLife Investment Management. And so naturally, I'm hearing a lot in the corporate media about how renting the American dream is even better than owning it.
The American dream isn't for sale, it's for rent in this community near Atlanta, Georgia.
I never even heard of a community that was strictly a rental community, so I was pretty intrigued by it.
Luke and Rebecca Montgomery spent a year looking to buy a home, but struggled to find anything within their price range and big enough for their family. Then they found this neighborhood on Zillow.
How nice is it to have the benefits of home ownership without the responsibility?
It's nice to be able to know that in the event something happens, it's not all going to fall on your shoulders. I can find myself very bored. I don't have to cut the grass.
Empty nesters Marco and Myra Martinez says the low-maintenance lifestyle gives them more time to enjoy the things they love.
People are taking a different path to home ownership.
David Howard, CEO of the National Rental Home Council, says Build to Rent provides an innovative way to introduce supply into the housing market.
A chance to build your credit up to hopefully buy in the future.
Yes, they will report that you are paying your rent on time, which helps you build your credit score. In some of these communities, like Quinn Residences, they offer education about how to save and build equity towards a home. Yeah.
But while the mainstream corporate news might paint renting as the more prudent financial move for many Americans, this view often sidesteps the inconvenient reality that the very moguls behind these narratives are often the same ones reshaping the market by snapping up vast numbers of homes, not to mention the fact that when new homes do pop up, they're now usually set aside for renters and not buyers. So I can't help but liken this trend to feudalism, an economic system from the Middle Ages where the majority of people were serfs who worked the land but unable to own property themselves and obligated to give a portion of their produce or labor to a small number of landlords as rent. Today's burgeoning nation of renters faces, I think, an eerily parallel predicament.
I was kind of looking to buy, but I'm continuing to rent just because that's kind of how it goes.
Where escalating rents and unattainable homeownership tether individuals to a cycle of perpetual payments to an increasingly concentrated ownership class, prompting serious questions about the future of economic opportunity, equality, and the very fabric of our so-called democratic society. Sounds like a f***ing nightmare. But does this have to be the future of housing in America? Is there something we can do if we don't want to all become serfs? This past December, Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison sued Progress Residential and won a motion against them, with the court ordering Progress Residential to comply with state and federal lead paint hazard laws.
Owners and operators, all of them are responsible, and they will be held responsible. So it's not going to be good enough to say, I just own the place and get the profits from it. I don't operate. No, so that's not going to work.
Also, a nonprofit, United Renters for Justice, is fighting to improve living conditions for renters of Progress Residential-owned properties. More recently, Oregon Senator Jeff Merkley introduced Senate Bill 3402, the End Hedge Fund Control of American Homes Act, legislation that would mandate that hedge funds and other types of corporations sell off all single-family homes over a 10-year period and eventually ban them from holding those properties altogether. Now, whether you believe the solution to America's housing crisis lies with the free market or additional government regulations, the fact is, Progress Residential is the largest operator of single-family rentals in the US, meaning they hold significant market power. And with more and more people forced into being forever renters, I think we can all agree that no tenant should be subjected to the conditions as appalling as the stories we heard today, especially because in most cases, these exploitative, anti-human practices stem not from a lack of resources, but rather deliberate decisions driven solely by corporate greed. That is all for me this week. What do you think about the future of housing in America? Do you think housing needs to be more regulated, or should we continue to let the private sector take care of things? Sound off in the comment section below. If you have a story that you want to share about Progress Residential, please do share it. Make a video, make a post. Hashtag Progress Residential sucks. Whatever platform you want to use, because part of my mission is to educate, spread awareness, and this time you can do the same for your fellow citizens, because it's so important. Without people speaking out, nobody's gonna know what the hell is going on. And if you enjoy my work and want to support me, please take a second to like this video, share with as many people as you can, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. And if you feel so inclined, also hit that notification bell so you can be the first to know when my video drops. As always, I'd like to thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next one.